Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Flower Power Live. Today is April 11th, 2022. And here in the Northeast, the spring ephemerals are starting to come out in the woodlands. And these early spring blooming plants are taking advantage of this period of time between when the deciduous trees start to leaf out and when it's too cold to grow by using the sunlight that's coming through the canopy at this time. And so these are what we think of these sort of delicate blooming wildflowers, including trillium, trout lily, claytonia, many others, including our plant of the week, which is bloodroot. Hi, I'm Allison from the Well Cultivated Life, and thank you for going along this plant journey with me. We're on show, I think, 71 now, and it's been quite a learning experience for, I hope, for you as well as me. So, bloodroot is Sanguinaria canadensis, and it is in the poppy family, and it is pretty much throughout all of the woodland areas in the eastern half of North America up into Canada. And as I said, it's a spring ephemeral, which means that it comes out before the trees have grown out. And bloodroot, along with a lot of these other woodland plants, they generally have a relatively short bloom time and only about a week. And so you got to catch it when it's blooming. And that is kind of the opposite of how long it takes. It takes like 6 years for a seed to grow to the point where it's actually going to bloom. So these undersoil roots are working hard. They're actually a rhizome, which is similar to like ginger and turmeric. And the name bloodroot comes from the sap and the rhizome of the plant, and it is bright red, as you can imagine. So this is a beautiful picture of the white flower. It's got this yellow center in it. And one of the cool things about bloodroot is that it has a unique leaf. And when it first comes out of the ground, the leaf is all wrapped around the stem of the flower as it comes up, like a little cozy blanket almost. And only when the bloom has finished does it actually start to unfurl and it into its shape, which is this cool pomade shaped type of leaf. And in fact, it does grow eventually to be about the size of a adult hand by the time summer comes around, before it goes dormant. So these spring ephemerals, they don't grow throughout the entire summer. They really are just for the spring. But it's very important that they're here in the spring because they are super important early bloomers that provide nectar and pollen for the overwintering pollinators, such as the queen bumblebees. Who doesn't love a bumblebee, right? And also some of these have very specific pollinators that they've created these sort of symbiotic relationship with, like mining bees and carrion flies. So they are very important ecologically this time of year. And let me see what else. So one of the things about bloodroot is that it is on the at-risk list for seed dispersal. No, for seed dispersal, for on the at-risk list of United Plant Savers. I'm looking at my next slide here, seed dispersal. And what this is because, populations of these types of plants, these spring woodland plants, they're usually really small. Like there isn't a whole bunch of these types of plants in one place at one time. And so it's easy to be overlooked and trampled upon. And they're kind of delicate and they grow close to the ground. And so they can be really can get mushed up by people who are just unaware and not paying attention to what is growing underneath them. And also just development does take out a lot of the habitats that these like to grow in. And so back to this next amazing trait of bloodroot It says, oh, I had to look up on YouTube how to pronounce this. Myrmecarus, I think that's right, seed dispersal. And what that means, this is a little bloodroot seed pod, and you can see the seed in there, and then it's got this white gooey stuff on it, and that is this type of lipid, which is like a fat, and apparently ants love this, and so they have developed this ant dependent seed dispersal. So the ants come, they pick up the seed, they take it back to their nest, and they eat the lipid off of it, and then kind of discard the seed, and that way the bloodroot is able to spread its seeds around. And so, yet again, another limitation: you don't have the right kind of ants, you're not going to get your seeds spread out very far. So, but I thought that was very cool. Indeed. Now, of course, you can help Bloodroot to be more to survive by planting some in your garden, and especially if you have any kind of area which has deciduous trees, and then kind of like a nice organic layer underneath it. I had some. I haven't seen it this year, so I'm worried it's not coming back. Underneath, I have some blooming crabapple trees, and so it's right in my little shade garden there. And again, you go away for a week, you're going to miss the bloom. Now, it's really important, again, since this is somewhat, it's not endangered yet, but it is at risk, so that you want to make sure that you're getting from a cultivated source, and not someone that went out and basically wild harvested it, because wild harvesting is really doing a lot of damage to the populations of bloodroot. And that's the main reason why it is somewhat endangered. So now, bloodroot is, and I have a note here. Or you can just make friends with some ants, have them bring some seeds over for you, right? So bloodroot, medicinally, it was used as for different purposes, mostly by Native Americans, and they would make a tea that for rheumatism, asthma, bronchitis, lung ailments, laryngitis, and fevers. It's also a strong emetic, which means it makes you throw up, and an abortive. So, needless to say, even though one practical use is that the juice was used on warts and to help take the warts down, it's not really something that anyone except a very experienced or a traditional someone with traditional knowledge on how to use this particular plant, you would not want to be using bloodroot for yourself. Now, the only way it really gets used now is that it's an animal feed additive of some sort. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a dewormer or something, but that current commercial use is what is causing a lot of the at-risk status for this plant. And the other thing is that even though we wouldn't use it maybe traditionally because of the level of toxicity, it does have some research that's been done on some of the alkaloids that are contained in it. It's called sanguinarine, after the genus Sanguinaria. And so this shows promise for it has antiseptic, anesthetic, and anti-cancer sort of qualities. So this is a case where these active compounds for use in pharmaceuticals might be a better use of it, again, as long as it was being grown commercially and not wild harvested. So instead of eating it and potentially dying, what you can do instead is to die with it. So bloodroot, here is the actual root itself, and I put some other rhizomes up here to compare to. There's turmeric and ginger and bloodroot. And I found this picture of the bloodroot rhizome at this woman's blog called Ithaca Waldorf. And I'm not sure if she's at an Ithaca Waldorf school or she just loves Waldorf stuff. I personally love Waldorf, and my kids went to Waldorf schools for a few years when they were younger. But she did some dyeing with bloodroot, and here's the plant, and You can see the little rhizomes down there, and she dyed wool and she dyed some fabric as well. And it was just interesting that it comes out orange. You would think it would come out red. Now, I'm not a natural dye expert, but I do know you can add different things to your dyes to get different colors. And so I'm sure if you played around with it, and you could probably get some nice blood red colors out of Bloodroot, red being a kind of a difficult dye color to find in nature. It was one of these ones that historically it was hard to find something red. So if you are interested in, if you're a dyer and you like playing around with this kind of stuff, then by all means get yourself some Bloodroot. But again, make sure it's being purchased from a sustainably harvested or commercially grown rather than wild harvested. So now, what is often the case with these toxic plants is that since we don't really want to use the plant directly, then we can look to the more energetic type of remedies. And in this case, flower essences, but also just a quick note about homeopathic remedies. Now, Bloodroot does have a homeopathic remedy. And if you're not familiar with homeopathy, it is another sort of, it's a practice of taking a plant, diluting it down so much that you can't actually measure the molecules in it. And so it's the more the energetic imprint of the plant that is doing the medicinal work. And so I use homeopathic remedies a fair amount. I usually use them when I have some kind of acute thing like a cold or cough or something like that. But it started in the 1800s, and it really works the best. You have a list of symptoms, and then here's sort of some constitutional aspects of the person, such as is this person sick and whiny? And so it's fun to look at them because some of the symptoms are very bizarre. And Bloodroot is specifically indicated for right-sided symptoms. So things that are happening on the right side, including different kinds of pains, headaches that start behind the eye, pain in the arm, and then right side of the like sternum and areas like that. And so again, if you're interested in homeopathy, I think it's quite fascinating. I have seen good results with it. It's worth checking out. Now, the flower essences tend to work a little bit more on the more like emotional aspects of the person. And so Bloodroot helps us trust that we will feel safe as we move through just kind of the changes and the evolution of us just being a human and how we change through time. And it does this by helping us kind of go into our inner resources and heal the old wounds and traumas and things like that, and be able to kind of bring those to a resolution so that we can bring our own light out to the surface. So in part, it's because it allows us to see more a overall perspective of not just our own personal issues, but also just like what does it mean to be a human that is um, living a human experience, right? And so Rowan and Sage says, as a vibrational remedy, Bloodroot allows us to call upon our ancestors and connect with the blood of the land to heal ancestral wounds and clear conditioning passed down to us that affect our emotional well-being, lived experience, health, and vitality. So most of us have things from our childhood that we're still working through because we didn't know we were supposed to. And so especially if there's some kind of feeling of unworthiness attached to this, the Bloodroot flower essence can really help. It helps you to reach the understanding that we are the sum of our experiences, and we can now embrace our roots as part of the path that has led us to the level of enlightenment that we're now at. So you need to do some deep inner work. Bloodroot is definitely going to be your ally in this work. Now, this week's oracle card is the I did not have a Bloodroot card, so I decided to pull a card from this Earthcraft Oracle deck with this gorgeous artwork by Danielle, Boodoo-Fortune, and the authors are Juliet Diaz and Lorriane Anderson. And they, oh, I forgot to show you something. I wanted to show you real quick. This book, when I said, oh, I'm going to do Bloodroot, I pulled out this, which is a little bit different of a type of book than I normally use. It's an awesome book. This is for Eastern Central medicinal plants and herbs. And so it's a field guide where you can go out and identify plants out in the field, which this time of year, we're starting to see more stuff come up. And sadly, both of the authors have passed away. Stephen Foster just died this past year and James Duke a few years ago, but it's still an excellent guide. And so I wanted to recommend that. All right, back to our card of the day. So this week's card, like I said, I didn't have a specific card for Bloodroot, so I pulled a card from this deck because I felt like Bloodroot is the blood of the earth, and so what would be a good card to go with that? And so Earthcraft Oracle came to mind, and the card that came out was Inner Healer, and I'm like, well, that's cool because it really matches up with the flower essence message as well. So it says here, follow the path of the inner healer and choose to do the inner work required to turn your pain into medicine. You have a choice to make. Will you become a powerful healer, or will you allow past traumas, limiting beliefs, false ideas of self-image, and toxic relationships to push your beautiful light further into darkness? It says, don't be afraid to do this because you are held by, the love of Mother Earth. And with time, the light of your inner healing will shine, eliminating your gifts of wisdom and growth and awakening the inner healer of those around you. And I just loved that part because, as we know, when we allow ourselves to live fully, to be our light person, it gives permission to other people to also be that way. So that's just a beautiful way to think of it. And so the Bloodroot, this blooms for this very short period of time. And it's this beautiful white, kind of like a beautiful light out on the landscape when the rest of the world is still mostly dormant and brown. And it's kind of like bringing this rebirth of spring along with it. But of course, beneath the surface, this, deep blood colored root is very alive and growing and building its reserves in order to have this moment in the sun, right? So this is a great guide for our own inner growth because our work is continual. Beneath the surface, we have a lot of periods of growth and then we have periods of rest, just like plants do. And so this beauty, excuse me, of the Bloodroot represents, very much this kind of season of inner growth and then this blossoming into light. So this week, you can ask yourself, like, have I been really building this like inner strength and willness for myself? Am I doing this work to create a strong, healed self? And because that is the way that we can bring more love and light into the world. And for me, that's what I feel our purpose is here on Earth. And, I think a lot of people may not even think about this and may not even realize, wow, what am I doing to be self-supportive? Because it's really all up to me, looking inside ourselves and making sure that we have the strength and the healing inside. So check it out. Like, I bet you're doing more for yourself than you think. And so if you are, then you should just celebrate those little things. It's been kind of a theme the last couple of days, our last couple of weeks for me is make sure and celebrate that small things that you're doing. And if you are sort of being introspective and thinking, wow, no, I'm really not doing that, then just pick something. Like, what is some old story that you can just let go of and just make a conscious effort to work on that? This is a great way to bring more purpose into your life. And I believe it's just sort of indispensable. In fact, it is the lifeblood of living a purposeful life. So that's our message from Bloodroot tonight. Thank you for joining me. And I think I announced last week that I am going to be running a challenge. And I had to push it ahead a couple days. It's going to be starting April 20th, next Wednesday, and it won't be long till all the stuff is set up. So if you're on my email list or you're in my Facebook page or whatever, just pay close attention for the announcement and the way to sign up. So have a great night, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here for Flower Power Live. Bye-bye.